Welcome to the 1,000 Feet Deep podcast, where we get real about leadership, team, and culture. We don't just talk about success, we talk about the foundations that carry it. So whether you're leading people, building a business, or growing yourself, take a deep breath, dig deep, and let's get started. Hey guys, well today we've got a really special guest, a really good mate of mine, Anthony Kirby from the Build Mentor, mate. How are you going, Kirb?
Going really well, Dan, and it's lovely to be on the other side of this microphone for once.
Yeah, well, mate, you're no stranger to podcasts. You've done, how many would it be?
Hundreds, I would
Hundreds.
say. Yeah.
Hundreds. I really want to make sure that we talk about that because I know that I think at one stage your podcast was number one in Australia. Is that right?
Yeah, in Australia and New Zealand for 26 weeks.
That's
And there's a lesson to be had there too. I'll tell that story.
Yeah, make sure we get to that. Hey, but say we crossed paths back in GJ years, which was a number of years ago now, and you obviously struck me as somebody who was really passionate about what you do. Which for us at the time, you were helping GJ Gardner Homes and us old buffhead builders with strategies on how to sell and how to build a team that sells. So tell us, mate, how did you get into that?
Well, it was almost a little bit accidental, Dan. I worked in the building industry, as you know. I was selling houses for a long time, and then I became a sales manager. And then I started working for a large company and essentially was sitting in the boardroom one day training a sales team.
Yeah.
And I just had this weird moment where I thought, why am I only training 3-4 people here? Why don't I just go and train 1,000?
Yeah, good.
And it was like someone had just punched me in the back of the head with this epiphany.
It's not like you to think big, mate.
Yeah, I know. And as it happened, it was Father's Day. It was my first Father's Day about a month after that. And for my Father's Day present, I was given a gift of going to a conference. And whether you love him or hate him, the conference was Tony Robbins.
Okay, all right.
I've never been to a Tony Robbins conference. I don't know if anyone watching this or listening to this would have been, but it's pretty intense. I don't know. Have you ever been to one, Dan?
I've never been, mate. No, I've been to plenty of conferences, not that good, not that big.
Well, it's like 4,000 people. So I flew down to Sydney, went to this conference, and I remember there was a guy in front of me. He was an American fella. He was wearing a brown leather jacket. I still remember it like it was yesterday. It gives me goosebumps still now. And Tony Robbins was talking about setting big goals. And he said something that I still love when I still teach this, actually, which is never leave the site of setting a goal without taking massive immediate action.
Okay.
So basically, if you're going to make a goal, do something about it without walking away.
Wow, I like it.
So, it felt in that moment like Tony Robbins was staring directly at me in this auditorium of 4,500 people or whatever. I'm sure he wasn't, but it felt like that. and he said, "What's a big goal that you know you need to do?" And in my head, this American guy turned around to me. His name was JC. Shout out to JC if he's ever listening to this. He works for Microsoft. And he turned around to me and he said, "What's your goal?" And I said, "I'm going to be on a stage like him, and I'm going to help 4,000 salespeople."
Yeah, wow.
And he said, "Well, what are you going to do about it?" And I walked out of the auditorium in the break, and I called the general manager of the business I was working with at the time.
Yeah.
And I said, "Hey, mate, we need a meeting on Monday. I need to talk to you about my plans." And I quit my job on the Monday.
Goodness me. Yeah,
and it was a big move. I mean, I was making good money. I had a young son at the time. Charlie was 6 months old then. My then wife went off her nut, but then was very supportive beyond that. And I started the business, and I sort of fell into the field of coaching and training and mentoring people almost on the back of that thought of, why aren't I just doing this for more people? I feel like I could have a bigger impact out there. Yeah. And that's probably true of most leaders, where we kind of fall into leadership sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely do.
We fall into looking after people. We fall into running a team because our business grows quickly. Yeah. And we kind of stumble into it and stumble through it.
Yeah.
And that's how it started. And then, of course, I had to figure out, all right, I've got a kid to feed here. How am I going to get nappies and food?
Yeah.
And it was pretty brutal time, Dan. I can't lie about that. It was definitely some hard times there.
Yeah.
Away from full-time income, and then realizing that your savings is just dropping every month, that you can't figure this stuff out.
Yeah.
It's all the stuff no one tells you, which is always the way, right? Like I sort of left thinking, it'll be easy. Someone will just call me and I'll make some money. but you're the best kept secret. You know, you've got the skills, but no one knows who you bloody are.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
There's always desire versus reality curve, isn't there?
100%, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I had to figure it all out. I had to figure out websites and how do you create an email which is your brand, not just anthony@gmail.com. You know, how do you make it professional? And this is before ChatGPT, and this is before all of these tools that we've now got that are making life much easier for everybody.
Yeah.
And what ended up happening was, you know, at the time, I remember my then wife came to me and said, "Hey, you know, I don't want to stress you out, but we can't afford to feed the kid. You know, we can't afford to buy nappies and food for Charlie next week."
Yeah.
That was a massive wake up moment. And I just hit the phones. I forget how many calls I made. It was in the hundreds of phone calls that I made.
Wow.
And
mate.
the call was, "Hey, I'm going to run this event and I'm going to teach you how to do sales in a nice, ethical, nice way.
Yeah.
Would you like to come along? It's $297 for the seat."
Yes.
And I just got no, no, no. And I was thinking, what's going on here? I know how to sell. Why can't I sell anything? And I realized I'm speaking to the wrong people. So every call that I made, I changed the approach. Every single call, I thought, that didn't work. I'll change it next call. And I just tweaked one thing every call. And essentially, I realized that I needed to be speaking to managers, not salespeople, because the managers were the people with the problem, not the salespeople. The salespeople thought they were doing fine, but the managers were struggling to manage their people. They were struggling to get performance, struggling to motivate, struggling to get them in for a weekly meeting every Monday and know what to talk about.
Yes.
So then I started to talk to the sales managers, and instead of selling one ticket, I started to sell 10 tickets. Because I'd say, bring your whole team. And then I sold 43 tickets for that event, which at the time felt like I'd hit the jackpot.
Yes, mate.
I was only talking about this with Charlie, my son, the other day, because he's 10 now, almost 11. And, you know, he was asking how I started the business and talking about this exact thing. And I was making him do the maths on it. You know, I was saying I had $297 a ticket. We had 43 people. How much did Dad make out of that event?
Yeah.
I was using it like a teaching exercise for him. And the power of that was not the event. The power of that was what happened after the event, which was that I had now this audience of 43 people who went back to their businesses, got great results, and went, maybe there's something in this.
Yeah.
And that was the catalyst for the growth. And that's what led me to GJ Gardner.
Yeah. Okay. And how long after, mate? Like how long were you in your business before you kicked off with GJ's as a contractor?
Probably a year or so. And there's a good lesson
Okay.
in the way. The guy, I'm sure he wouldn't mind me mentioning his name. It's Andrew Kerr. I know you know Curry.
Absolutely.
I've
Hello,
got a
Curry.
fantastic building company on the Sunshine Coast, doing really well. Shout out to
Oh,
Curry.
he's a great boy.
And he was connected to me on LinkedIn, Dan.
Yeah. Okay.
I was putting this content on LinkedIn about helping people to sell and helping people to be better with how they're approaching their business. And there was just crickets. You know, no one was liking my posts, no one was commenting, no one was sharing, but I just kept showing up. I kept showing up anyway. And I reckon I did that for 12 months. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, I get this message from Curry saying, "Hey, Kirby, I've been watching your content for 12 months. I'm now working at GJ Gardner." I think he was doing franchise development role at the time.
Okay.
He said, "They're looking for a sales trainer. Would you be up for a chat?" And that was my entryway. Now, I look back on that now and I think, imagine if I just stopped posting because I was worried about the ego of how many people liked and commented.
Yeah. True.
Instead of just doing it because it was the right thing to do. And I knew out there that somewhere there would be someone who'd appreciate the content at some stage.
Yep.
And that opened the door to that conversation with Matt Hope and the team who were then the master franchisees at GJ's, who you were involved with, Dan. And ultimately, that led to me getting a really lucrative deal with the GJ Gardner group. And then, I went to Hawaii for the conference and all that sort of stuff. It was really fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, mate, you added real value to us franchisees who, we were builders. So, it was one of the big mistakes that I made early on in my building business was that I came into it with a worker's mindset, thinking that all you need to do is build good homes. And of course, that's true, although you've got to sell them first.
That's right.
And so we built 40 homes in our first year, and from there it just tailed off because I essentially, I had the beginnings of a sales team, but I didn't have too many, and then one left, and then as you know, one's not working out, and one's on holidays, and one's sick, and all the rest of it, and before you know it, you've got half a salesperson, and that's not a slight on the person themselves. It's just everyone's up and down and away and sick and all the rest of it. And so before you knew it, our building business didn't have any builds. So we quickly learned that we actually, as far as business goes, we're a sales business. And I remember when you guys came along, it was probably just at that right time where you gave us some tools, and helped us to think differently about what it was to be, a sales business. So yeah, it was very valuable, mate. Very valuable.
Yeah, well, I appreciate the kind words, Dan. I think, ultimately, you think even about glasses, both you and I we're getting old, Dan. We both
Yeah.
wear. And I remember once someone said to me, when you go to an optometrist, even an optometrist, they're not an optometrist anymore. They're a salesperson.
Yeah.
They're just giving you the solution to your problem.
Yeah.
And that's the same in any industry. Anyone who's listening to this, if they're in business and leaders of any kind, even as a leader, you're selling yourself. You're selling what you believe to your team.
Yeah.
You believe about the culture of the business to the people in the business and helping them to get aligned with it.
Yeah.
So it's, for me, sales is not what it used to be. I think when I came up, it was all about just close hard, crunch
Yes.
people, close them on a deal, ask the hard questions. I don't believe any of that really applies nowadays. And I think leadership's similar to that as well, Dan, where it used to be about just rule with an iron fist. Tell your team what's going to happen and make them accountable. And I get all accountability is important, but also so is respect. And
Mate,
so
I want us to go there, Curb. Yeah, I want us to go because I feel like you're right. Like I'm very aware that when we talk about sales, there's an image that we come up with. Even in business, it's like sales is a dirty word. You don't want to be too pushy, and when we think about leadership, we think the same, and then we think about accountability, and so we've got all of these preconceived ideas about what these things mean because we've seen it done poorly
yeah,
potentially. But I'll tell you what, you can't have a business without sales,
that's
and you
right.
can't have sales without good quality, healthy salespeople. And you can't have good quality, healthy salespeople without great leadership, and so they all feed into one another,
Yeah,
don't
it's
they,
a
mate?
self-fulfilling prophecy as well, Dan. If
And
you
it
if
is.
you're part of that wrong, it can become like a tumor in the business.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You can have a
Yeah, no,
great team and a poor leader who doesn't get the best out of them. So then they just stop trying
yeah,
and they become a lesser version of themselves. So then the client gets a lesser experience and then the business gets a lesser experience. So it all works backwards and forwards, But if you've got great people who are then, for want of a better word, forcing good leadership or forcing is
yeah,
the wrong
through
word.
this
I don't know
need.
what the word
Yeah.
is. You're looking at your team going, geez, they expect a higher standard of me now as the leader. That's massive, that level of ownership for yourself as well of saying, what, I can be a better person as part of this environment, even
Yeah.
as a leader, is really paramount as well.
It is so important, mate, because it's I'm on this bit of a, what would you call it, a bit of a war, if you will, against, when you hear on social media so much talk about toxic leaders and toxic teams and things like that. And you know what? I'll be the first to admit that I'm sure there are toxic leaders and toxic teams out there. It happens. But you know what I think more that it is, Curb, is that people don't know. People are time poor.
Mm,
People are hurt. I was talking to a guy even just recently, and he talked about, you get corporate scars. These things that happen in life, and you haven't dealt with it well, and then you move into your next role, and you carry those scars into the next role with you as a leader or as a team member. And mate, like I find that there's a lot of people out there who want to do a lot of good. Most people that are in business and like in teams, they want to service. They want to help, but we've also got to deal with that human element. And just to say that it's people not caring and being toxic, I think is just a little bit simplistic.
yeah.
Most of the people I know, and you work with builders, Curb, most of the builders
Yep.
I know, and I can't think of any that this isn't true of, they really care about the people that work with them, and they really care about their client, but maybe they're time poor, maybe they don't know how. And that's what I love about what you do, Curb, because you show them how to do an area of their business that's super important. They have to sell. It's not a swear word, you know. We need to be, if we're in business, we need to be selling. There needs to be revenue, but
100%.
but there's good and bad ways of doing it, I guess, is my point.
Of course.
So
I
what's
think,
been your experience, mate? You work with so many builders.
well, yeah, I mean, coming back to your point, Dan, about them not knowing, I think also a lot of it comes back to fear.
Yes,
As
mate. Yeah,
there's fear that they're going to lose a good team member. There's a fear that they're going to be found out, imposter syndrome.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Again, coming back to my earlier comment, most people don't get into business to have a big business. They get into business for a reason of I want to build a lifestyle. I want to be able to provide for my family. I want to be able to provide opportunities. And sometimes somewhere along the line, it gets a bit blown out of proportion and they don't know how to deal with it. And so they deal with it the best way that they can, which is just run as fast as you can at it. And oftentimes you're barreling things over in that process, not
yeah,
realizing you're causing some pain on people. So the toxicity doesn't necessarily come from being a bad person, because I think inherently most people are nice. And even outside of building, I've dealt with lots of different kinds of businesses over my time. Obviously we specialize in building companies, but what I find is generally people are really nice because everyone wants to be liked. That's a human trait.
yeah, yeah.
And that doesn't, irrespective of what career you're in or what business you're in,
Mm.
most people just want to be liked.
Yeah,
And
which
how
is
do
a problem, isn't it? Because leadership, that's it's hard to be liked when you're the leader because you've got to make some hard calls. Sorry to
exactly,
interrupt.
but
Yeah,
I think therein lies the problem, Dan, because what happens is they go, well, for me to maintain my leadership in inverted commas, I will be this kind of person. I've been told that I've got to be iron fist. I've been told that I just got to deal with the issue head on. You can still humanize a leadership experience. You can
yes,
still
mate.
have a hard conversation
Absolutely.
with someone. Like, for example, I literally had this yesterday with one of our clients. I'll say this with a level of sensitivity for the situation. This particular client called me and said, "How do I deal with this? This guy's a nice guy, but he's just not right for the business." And I said, "Just approach it like a human. You have
Yeah,
a
mate.
human conversation. Say, look, individual, I need to have an uncomfortable conversation with you right now, and I'm sorry that we're having this conversation because it's not personal. It's
Yes.
purely where the business is at, and we just don't feel like you're a right fit for the business.
Mm,
You're the
mm,
right person in the wrong business."
mm.
That's a human way to deal with that hard conversation.
Yeah.
Instead of going, "You're not performing," and making it dismissive of the individual and their character,
Yeah, yeah.
make it human. Just be a
Mm,
human. It's not
yeah,
hard. And it
yeah.
changes the whole context of how you approach leadership.
Look, it does, mate. You're dead right. That's the element that's missing in sales. That's the element that's missing in teams. It's the element that's missing in lots of areas of life. Is just that it's that human element, our humanity. How
Yeah.
would you like to be treated? Is how you should be treating others. And you know what? It's funny, Kerb, because people, they talk about the top three things that keep people in business, that keep people in team. And money's only in the top five. The first one is to know that your team and your boss and everybody in your organization has your back.
Mm.
That psychological safety, that I can make a mistake and I'm not going to be thrown under the bus. No one's going to be bagging me out or talking about me or all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
This place is a safe place. That's human. That's a human need. The next one is progression. They want to know that they're a part of a team or part of an organization where it's not dead end. Obviously, not every organization has, you know, constant, what would you call it, progression and that kind of stuff. But they're valued and they're not stuck. They want to be there. And the next one is that they're making a contribution. See, they're human needs that we have. Like, it's see our humanity. If we can be human about our roles, about our leadership, about our sales team, I reckon we revolutionise the way that we do business and the way we enjoy our work. I mean, we
Oh,
spend way
100%
too
agree.
much time, don't we, mate,
Yeah.
at work to be hating it. You know?
Yeah. Dan, I'll tell you an interesting anecdotal story on the back of this. And it was a big learning for me. It was when I was working for a large building company. I was an employee in this building
Yeah.
company. I'm talking, one of the majors.
Yeah.
And I sat in a boardroom with the Queensland manager, and he had on the board on a whiteboard, he had all of the sales team, and there would have
Yeah.
been maybe, I don't know, 30, 40 people in this sales team, and he drew a red line through the middle of the team on this level of, this is how many sales they should have made by now this year based on the run rate, and these people haven't done it. And the advice I was given from this guy was, go to all of the people below that red line and sack them.
Wow.
That was his answer to the problem.
Yeah,
It wasn't, let's understand why they're not selling.
that's right.
Let's
That's not
understand
human.
what are the constraints here. There's, again, it comes back to the humanity, right? It was just a pure business process approach, as if it was a computer program we were talking about. And these are real people with families and kids and school fees and mortgages and car payments and food to put on the table. And I'm like, these are good people. I deal with them every day. I mean, sure, might they be the wrong people for the business? Possibly. But we don't deal with it, just walk in and go, you're out. And that really was one of those, you talk about turning points, Dan, in your journey, whether you're a leader or not. There's always moments where you go, this is not the kind of person I want to be, and this is not the kind of place that I belong.
Yeah,
And I remember from there, that's really where that whole concept you might have heard me talk about, Dan, of TRS, which is time, resources, skills,
yeah,
which is, let's look at the person first and judge, do they have the time to complete the task we've asked them? Have we given them the right resources, and have we armed them with the right skills to deal with it?
yeah,
And if we haven't, then of course there's a logical conversation to have. But let's also be human about, are these things that can be resolved? Because
yeah.
to go back out as a business owner and go and find someone else who's a stranger. I remember my grandma used to always say, better the devil that you know than the devil that you don't. And it's same as applied in business. You can have someone in your business who is a good person. You hired them for a reason. They're in your business for a reason. You obviously saw something valuable in them to start with.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
perhaps you just haven't nurtured them by asking them the right kinds of questions and getting the best out of them. And it's, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. There's another good old saying that we hear a lot, right?
Yeah. Mate, it's so good because we have a thought here that leaders start with the team, but they need to start with themselves. So the first question we need to be asking as leaders is, have I set the expectation?
Yes.
So that would be the hand element, if you will. So it's like, have they got the skill set? Have they got the wherewithal? Do they know what's expected of them? Okay. And so once you've done that as a leader, the next progression is, have you empowered the outcome? So have you empowered the person? Have you done what you said? Have you trained them? Have you helped them to be able to overcome their mindset, which is what we would call head? And so then once you've done that, then you go, okay, then you measure the result. And then finally, you hold people accountable.
Yes.
So set the expectation, empower the outcome, measure the result, hold people accountable. What leaders want to do quite often is they want to go straight to hold people accountable
Yeah.
before they've set the expectation, empowered the outcome, or even measured the result. Or maybe they measure the result and then hold people accountable. But the thought is they find things out the hard way. And like, this is the thing, it's got to be leadership 101, hasn't it? We've got to be able to build our people to where they need to be. We can't have expectations and we haven't done anything to invest or develop our people to get there.
Well, again, this is the old school mentality of, well, it should, I think some
should be
leaders
right,
come into leadership thinking it should be hard.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a leader, this should be difficult. It's kind of like you're earning your stripes. Well, why should it be difficult? Just don't take your title out of it for a moment. And in fact, actually, I just read an amazing book, Dan, and I'll give it a plug. It's called The Psychology of Money, and it's by a called Morgan Housel. I don't know if you've read it, Dan.
I have. So good. Well done. Yeah,
Great book. Great book. And I think even though it's a book about money, I read this from the lens of how does this apply to other areas of life?
Good.
The psychology of money applies to the psychology of people, the psychology of your kids, the psychology of you, your relationships, the relationship with self, the relationship with others. One of the things in that book that I loved, and it comes back to what you said a moment ago, Dan, about what are the reasons that people come to work. He talks about, and I'm going to likely butcher this, so I'm paraphrasing this, but there's 4 types of money. The first type of money is survival money, which is money to get shelter, food, warmth, clothing. And then there's basic comforts after that, which is, some nice clothes, go out for dinner once a month. Then there's enjoyment money, which is you can go on holiday. And then there's ego money, which is everything beyond the point of enjoyment is ego.
Yeah, right.
This blew my mind when I read this. And, if you buy a car as a car, so then you can choose to buy a BMW, but why are you doing it? Are you doing it for your enjoyment, or are you doing it to show other people how good you are?
Yeah.
Now, put that into leadership context and sales context and business context. There's a basic level that your team need. Your team need a basic level of availability of you as the leader. Then there's the next level, which is you start to build a relationship. Then there's enjoyment level, which is where they enjoy their work. And then
Yeah.
as a leader, anything you're doing beyond that, you've got to ask, why are you doing it? Are you doing
Yeah.
it for yourself, or are you doing it to look good to someone else? And that,
It's a
and
really
that
good
book
thought.
really opened my eyes. And one of the lines in the book that I underlined twice is, some days it rains at Disneyland. So you can have the best laid plans. I mean, I don't know if you've been to Disneyland when your kids were younger, Dan, but I remember I took my boys to Disneyland a few years ago in Paris, and it rained and it was miserable and it was freezing cold.
Yeah. Wow.
And I remember thinking, I've been planning this for months. And everyone
Mm,
wants it to be sunny when they go to Disneyland, right? It's one of those poetic moments in life where you go, kids are meeting Mickey Mouse.
yeah.
And, the kids are all beaming and running around, loving life, eating fairy floss and filling themselves up with sugar and Coke. And then you get there and it's pissing down rain. Pardon.
Yeah.
Um, you can have the best laid plans as a leader, but sometimes it's going to rain.
It's a great analogy, mate, isn't it? And
Really is.
it's like, isn't it? You do everything you can, but of course, we don't control, do we? We can influence, but we can't control. Yeah, that's a good
So
thought.
true.
Let's talk about that for a sec then, Kurt. Obviously, so we mentioned at the beginning that desire versus reality. So you go out on your own, getting back to you and and what it is that you're doing now. You go out on your own, you want to help people, you've got the skill set, and then the sales don't come in. Okay, so you deal with that. And then actually what ends up happening is you start to ramp up and you actually get, quite a strong business over time. And obviously I know this because I've been keeping tabs on you. Then you move into the podcast arena and you're the number one podcaster in Australia, with
Yeah.
the number one podcast. And then even for you, Kurt, with all of that success, I think you've been quite honest over the years that you hit the wall.
Oh, big time.
You got yourself in a spot where it was like, oh, why am I doing this? Well, talk to us about that, Kurt, because obviously you got in with the right intentions and everything's going well, and yet talking about the rain at Disneyland, you're in Disneyland, you've got everything that you want, you've got everything that you set out to achieve, and then the rain hits. What
Yeah.
did that look like for you, mate?
I was at Disneyland for a while there, and it was raining for
Yeah.
a while.
Okay. Yeah.
Um,
It's a great
I,
analogy, mate. Well
I
done.
mean, the story. And I'm very open about all of this stuff because I think it's really important to honor your scars, as you said before. Instead of just you can't always just show the sunny side of Disneyland. Sometimes you got to show the pictures on the dreary grey day too, right?
Yeah.
What happened was, so I had a podcast which was called Chase Your Impossible, and I would interview high performance individuals. It went off its head. I mean, it was so successful. And this is before podcasting was really that popular. I mean, I've got a screenshot on my phone still of, my podcast, and then behind me is Tony Robbins in number 2. And behind that is Tim Ferriss, who wrote The 4 Hour Work Week in number 3. And behind that's Brendan. And I was thinking, like, what on earth is going on here?
Is that right?
But what happened was I got scared. And I actually sat down and I thought, who am I to have this success? This is not me. And I deleted the podcast. And it's one of the craziest, most ridiculous self-sabotage moments I've ever had in my life. And I look back on that now and I think, why did I do that? And ultimately, I didn't feel like I was worthy of being seen as a leader.
Okay.
It was a really interesting time. And what happened there, I'd built obviously a good business, as you know. We were doing really well. I had a team of 7 people at one stage and an office in Brisbane. I remember one day I was working really, really hard, as we all do. We all want the best. And I was on a plane. I flew down to Melbourne in the morning. It was the first flight out, like 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. Flew down, got a hire car, drove to Geelong for a workshop with this business. Did a whole day of work. Got in the car, drove back to Tullamarine Airport. Got on the plane, flew back to Brisbane. As I was getting on the plane, I sent a text message to this client saying, "Hey, thanks so much for the day. Really enjoyed it. It was great. I hope your team got a lot from it." And he replied as we were kind of taking off. And I just saw the preview. The preview said, "Hey, Kirby, thanks. Yeah." And then I just left it. I just thought, I'll deal with that when I get home. I climbed into bed that night and I was done. I mean, I was wiped. I'd been traveling most weeks. I was at the point of what I would call rock bottom in terms of burnout.
Yeah. Okay.
And I opened his message and it said, "Hey, Kirby, yep, thanks for coming. We thought the workshop was rubbish. You're not getting paid."
Wow, mate.
And this was worth, thousands of dollars to me at the time. I
Yeah.
remember I was sitting in bed. I had some Bose noise canceling headphones on, and it upset me so much. I took the headphones off and I threw them at the wall, and it went through the plasterboard in the bedroom wall.
Wow.
And I was devastated. I mean, I was broken in that moment because I just thought, you know what? Maybe I was right. Maybe I'm not good enough to do this.
Wow.
And it just reinforced all those bad beliefs I had about myself. What it did though, the next morning I woke up, and one thing I would say, most leaders, most people are quite good when they realize they're at the bottom. They're good at climbing.
Yeah.
Most people can realize, actually, you know what? I'm better than this. And you just got to find a little silver lining. And what happened was the next morning I got up, and normally everyone's so digital now. Everyone's on their phone, everyone's on technology. And I love a trusty old notebook.
Yeah.
And I went downstairs with my notebook and a pen, and I sat on the sofa. I still remember this. It was super early in the morning. And I sat down and I wrote at the top of the page, perfect average day. And I thought to myself, what the hell am I doing here? Like, why am I doing this? Why am I flying and driving and not getting paid? And why am I putting all this pressure on myself? For what? To pay everyone else's wages? Like, what am I getting out of it? And I came back to myself as the leader of the business. And I just wrote down, here's my perfect average day. I wake up in the morning, I take my kids to school. By this time, I had my second son, Harvey. I want to be able to take my kids to school. I want to be able to have breakfast at my own pace. I want to be able to go to the gym. I want to be able to have a massage, And what I realized was, and this is, I think, probably true for most people, when you get really crystal clear on who you want to be, like really crystal clear, take out all the ego of what people are going to think. When I wrote it down, I realized I didn't need an office in Brisbane City. I didn't need a team of people around me, a big team anyway. I only needed really one person to help me stay organized. And I literally got in the car, went to the office that day, gave notice on my office tenancy, and I walked into the team and I said, guys, I'm going to have to let you go. I'm really sorry. And it was a brutal day. It was horrible. And I felt bad for the people that I'd let go because I realized that I was the one that was responsible for putting them in that position. It wasn't their fault. It was my fault.
Yeah.
Because I didn't start with me first. I just had this big thing of just run, build, grow. And my ego got the better of me, Dan. Because I just wanted it to look like I was doing well. I had this office in the city. How nice is it? Come to my office in the city. Now I work from home.
Yeah.
I had to manage all those people whilst I was also on the road all the time.
Yeah.
And I realized that I was taking on clients that I wouldn't and didn't want to work with, like this example of the client in Geelong. I would never have worked with him. I didn't like the guy. The only reason I took the work was because I knew I had payroll in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And I didn't get paid for it anyway. So I realized actually all of this stuff as a leader comes back to being really clear on who do I want to be? And then it was just like an unwinding. And I had a friend of mine who I spoke with, and he said, Kirby, it's like you've got this massive cardboard box and it's folding in on itself again and again and again. And it's going to end up being this really small cardboard box. But you're in that cardboard box and you're happy.
Yep.
And we have to start with that. And I think as a leader, if you're in a position where you're thinking, what am I doing here? Why am I here? I'm not saying that you need to go and get rid of your team like I did. I mean, I took a really aggressive line on where I was going with my life at that point.
Yeah.
But you got to start to think, well, what do I want from this? And it was hard, mate. And some of those staff members have never spoken to me again, which is disappointing because I really respected them and I liked them.
Yeah.
And it was brutal. It was a really, really difficult day.
Yeah.
From there, though, it was good because I started to then say, well, I only want to work with the clients that align with what I call the dinner date client, which is if you're going to work with someone, work with people that you could easily go and have a beer with.
Yeah.
Because for me, that's important. I want to be able to say, hey, let's go for dinner, Dan. Let's go and have a steak after we've talked about these things. And if that person's not aligned to that for me, and this is a personal thing, of course, everyone's different.
Yep.
I'm not saying everyone needs to be best mate, but you should still have commonality. You should still have a level of self-respect for each other, of mutual respect, where you go, I respect Dan, and I know Dan respects me. If you haven't got that dynamic, you're in the wrong path, and something needs to change. And that's ultimately what I came back to, Dan, after all of that hard stuff. And I haven't really deviated from it since.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So what did that season of time look like for you, Curb? Obviously, was it emotionally too? You had to get through some stuff.
Yeah,
So did you wound the business back?
I did all the
Was
way
it
back.
then? Did you just build from the base again straight away? Did you take some time off?
Yeah,
How'd you recoup?
I
How'd that
actually
look that season?
I separated from my wife during that
Okay,
time.
okay,
Um,
that'd have been
and
tough.
well, I mean, yeah, I mean, very tough. I got kids. You don't marry someone with the
Well,
intention of forcing them.
wow, mate.
And that certainly wasn't my intention. But fortunately, we've been able to build a respectful relationship, and we're co-parenting really well. It's good, and we both moved on to fantastic relationships. So silver linings again, right?
So it was a full-on season then. It was like
Big,
there's a lot of
big,
wow.
lots of change. I moved back to the UK for a period of time after COVID lockdowns, and spent some time back in my homeland, which was, on reflection, more for nostalgia reasons than benefits.
Yep.
And when I was there in the freezing cold winter, thinking, why on earth am I here? And then that was what led me back to Australia. And during that whole time, the business was much, much smaller than it had ever been. I mean, I was probably maintaining a handful of clients versus a roster of 30 or 40.
Yep.
So, it was substantially smaller than it ever had been. And when I came back to Australia, I rebuilt it again. And fortunately, I've got Mark Harris alongside me now, who's just such a good sounding board for me. And he's very opposite to me in the energies. So I'm all about just go, go, go. He's all about let's just put a system behind that and make sure we're picking up the crumbs as we go as well, Kirby. So I think, again, important to have good people around you. I've learned a lot from that process. It was it was dark, mate. It was dark.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember, one night sitting there in my underpants, and I don't mind sharing this because I know I'm not the only one who's been here. I had the police knock on my door because I was not in a good space
Yeah. Is that right?
when I was in the UK. Yeah.
Okay.
And I remember I was sitting there overweight, less healthy than I've been in 20 years,
Yeah.
crying,
Yeah.
living in not a very nice place. And I remember the police officer, there was two of them. There was a woman and a man. And I remember the woman being quite good looking, Dan. And I remember thinking, this is the most embarrassing moment of my life. I've got this really beautiful woman standing in front of me. I'm here, this fat, overweight has been.
Yeah.
And it was brutal. And the next morning was brutal as well. But then I realized, again, it was the same sort of pivot. It was that whole thing of, it reminded me of the perfect average day moment, because it was that next day or two where I said, well, what part of this can I control?
Yeah. That's
I'm
right.
getting upset about things that are within my control. So I'm choosing this. And if you can change something and you're not, well, then you're choosing it. And that was just such a massive thing to go, why am I choosing this? Why am I choosing to be in the UK when I know I've got a good lifestyle waiting for me in Australia? Why am I having my financial pressures in the UK when I could go back to Australia and rebuild?
Yeah.
And that was literally, that was it. I was coming back to Australia, and I found a way to get back to Australia within 8 weeks.
Yeah. Mate,
So,
look, it's so important, isn't it? We talk a lot about influence, and you're dead right, mate. Like, if you're not influencing outcomes, you're a victim of circumstance. It's really the only thing that's left. You know, it's like influence outcomes, be a passenger of life, or be a victim of circumstance. And I tell you what, it's so tempting just to be a victim of circumstance, because it's a safe place. You're not getting your expectations up. No one's disappointing you. You're not being let down because, you haven't got expectation anyway. And I mean, I know that I've had to deal with that a lot over the years. It's just like, if you will, for want of a better way of explaining it, it's like just feeling sorry for yourself and just going to that place where you don't hope anymore for anything. And again, it's a deceiving place because it feels somewhat safe because you're in control. But your control mechanism is, I just don't have any expectation anymore.
yeah, which is what a sad place to get to in your life.
And it's sad, but it's so understandable. And I think people go there. We all go there. But mate, I want to hear more about some tools that you might have started to put into your life to make sure that you don't go back there, because you've got to be able to rise up out of that. But not everyone does. And we just want to say to anybody that's on the pod, look, we understand. I again, this thought that I have recently around social media stuff and the way we communicate to each other as humans is that we talk about success, but we never talk about the journey. You know, that's why this podcast exists, to talk about the journey of success. And if you speak to anybody about their journey, you'll find that there are bumps in the road and worse. You know, there are valleys and despair. You know, there is the imposter syndrome you talked about. There's so many elements to life and humanity. And we need to talk about it all because it's just life.
It is.
And I love the fact you've been honest enough to talk us through what you've been through. But also, too, we don't want to stay there because we want to be able to empower people. So talk to us how you talked a little bit just about, you know, some of the mechanisms in day one, day two, how you might get through. But how do you keep going after that curve?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think also the other point I would make on your comment about darkness and valleys there, when it's dark and it's night, sunshine feels like a long way away.
Yeah,
you know, like morning feels like a long time. And I think sometimes you just got to remember that you've got to break down the hours. I mean, I was literally, and still now, some days I just go, okay, what do I need to do to win this hour?
It's a good thought.
Don't worry about the days and the weeks and the months. They'll take care of themselves. And if you've got to, even if you just scratch on a piece of paper, this is what I want to achieve this week. And then you just break down to, what can I do this hour to move towards it? And it comes all the way back to what I said earlier about that Tony Robbins comment. You know, never leave the sight of setting a goal without taking massive immediate action. And so, you know, if you write down, I just know that I need to get my health on track. That will improve everything. Yeah, well, what can you do in this hour to make sure your health's on track? It doesn't have to be big. You don't have to go and run a marathon. Do you just need to drink a bit more water?
Yeah.
And if, you know, the simplest tool that I give people who are struggling with mindset, which is one that I've used myself, Dan. If you set a timer for every hour, and when that timer goes off, you ask yourself one question. Did my actions this hour move me towards my outcomes or away from them?
Good thought.
That's it. If you just simplify your life to that level, I know that's micro level, but if you are in the place of despair and darkness and you just can't see the future, just win the hour.
Yeah.
And if you win the hour, you'll win the day.
It's a really good thought.
Do that for enough days in a row, you'll make more progress than you possibly might have imagined. And another quote that I love, which is again weirdly also another Tony Robbins quote, which is people overestimate what they can achieve in 1 year and they underestimate what they can achieve in 10. Now you break that down further and you go, you probably overestimate what you can achieve in a week, but you underestimate what you can achieve in a month.
Yeah.
So just be kind on yourself. That's the biggest change for me, I think, personally, is I'm just more kind to myself. I don't expect to be perfect dad. I know I'm going to make mistakes. You know, I'm mindful of how I talk to my kids because I know that I'm creating impressionable blueprints for them for when they're a parent. But I don't always get it right. Yeah. You know, some days I'm tired and I probably snap at them more than I should ordinarily snap at them. So again, just win the hour. You know, just if I put my kids to bed at night on, you know, I have my kids 50% of the time. I have week on, week off. I had my kids last night. We had a lovely meal at the pub together, which is what they want to do before they go back to mum's today. Put them to bed last night. Happy days. They're healthy. They're happy. They're living a good life. That's a win.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to enjoy the moment.
Does that mean I put $1 million in their school fund? No. They don't care.
Yeah.
They got the best version of me last night.
Yeah, they just want you. Yeah,
I just won the hour. You know,
it's so important, mate. So important. Just on that, I did a podcast a little bit ago with Dion McFadden. He's actually a mate of mine, and he hit 40, and fit as a fiddle, strong as an ox. This guy hit 40 and got 2 types of leukemia, and one of them, if not both of them, were like. You know, life ending. You know, leukemia is bad, as you know, but there's forms of it that are just, you know, very rarely do you get through it. Anyway, he got through it, but he actually said there were times that he was laying there and he was like close to death. And one of the ways that he got through it was just owning the hour, just in the moment. All right, I'm not going to think about anything beyond now. And he would just live for this hour, and he got through that, and then he lives for the next. And he just took on this really short-term mindset. You know, and that and a couple of other things helped him get through this just absolutely horrific circumstance. But it's so true, Kerb. But a lot of success is just mindset, and a lot of mindset is just tools, isn't
Yeah.
it? It's like stopping. The Bible talks about it this way, and it's such a great tool, if you will. Speaking about tools, such a great vision of what it is to have a mindset that's healthy. And it says to take your thoughts captive, to go, stop. What am I thinking about here? Where's this going to lead? And there's another really good analogy, and it's like you can't stop birds from flying over your head, but you can stop them from nesting in your hair.
That's a good one. I like that one.
Because sometimes, what it's like, mate. We're emotional human beings, where humanity is up and down. And we think all sorts of things and horrific things sometimes. But to
Yeah.
be able to, I love what you said, be kind to yourself and go, hey, look, I can't stop that thought from floating around in the ether, but I can certainly stop myself from taking it on.
Yeah.
Because as you know, Kerb, what ends up happening is our mindset actually starts to shape who we are.
Of course, thoughts become things. I really
does.
believe in this. If you've got good energy and good intention, you get good energy and good intention in return. One of the other things that I haven't mentioned, Dan, and I have to mention this.
Yeah.
You have to be able to talk to people.
Okay.
You have to be able to say to someone, "Hey, I'm not good."
Yeah.
I remember the day after the police came to my house for a welfare check. I remember I called my best friend in the UK. He's called Andy Bell. And I've known this guy since I was maybe 3 or 4 years old. We're so opposite to each other in terms of how our lives are, but yet, you've got those people in your life who it doesn't matter what you do in life, you come back together after 10 years and you'd still be able to have a conversation like that.
Yeah. They're good
That's
ones.
Andy. And I remember I called him the next day, and he's a real kind of, I don't mean this to sound disparaging when I say this, because he might listen to this, but he's just an insular kind of guy, right? He doesn't really share much openly. And I remember I called him and I said, mate, I'm not in a good place. I've been having some really crappy thoughts. The police came to my house last night to check on me. And I just don't feel good. In 15 minutes, he was at my front door and he said, get in the car, we're going for a pint. Now, I don't know if alcohol might have been the best idea in that situation, but the intention was there.
Yeah.
And so I went for a pint and he was devastated that I'd got to that place. And this is a guy who never really shares emotion. He was like, mate, you should have spoken to me.
Yeah.
And, I'm very, very open now. Mark, my business partner, we talk multiple times per day for lots of reasons, but we always have a check-in with each other.
Good, mate.
And I remember when I was, going through some difficult times, every morning, Mark would give me a call. Kirby, are you okay? How did you sleep last night? Anything you want to share? Can I do anything for you? You need someone in your corner like that, Dan.
You do. That's a good mate. Yeah,
You don't need hundreds, you need one. And I think that's been another big learning through that whole experience is that, you know what? Having a massive group of friends is not necessarily a good thing. Having a good close knit circle where you're locked in. You know that if there's an analogy of who could you call at 2 o'clock in the morning if you got arrested?
Yeah.
I mean, I would never get arrested. Touch wood.
Again, this year at least.
I've never been arrested, but it's that whole thing of who could you call and they'd pick up the phone.
Yeah.
Everyone needs one of those in their life.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't find them by looking, you find them by being.
Yeah.
You be a certain kind of person and those people gravitate into your world without you even realizing it.
Yeah.
So you don't go out searching for good people. You just be a good person and be kind to yourself, and those good people will come to you.
It comes back to mindset again, doesn't it, mate?
Always, always.
Yeah.
I suppose then,
So,
Dan, how do you protect your mindset? Okay. How do you protect it? Lock out anything that's going to influence that in a different way. So if you've got people in your world, be selective of how much time you're spending with them. If they're not that kind of person. The other thing that I can't even begin to express how important it is, focus on learning.
Learning's big. You're right.
I know for you and Nat, Dan, you're obviously members of the church, and for you, you've got your community there and you've got your Bible study. For me, I read every day.
Yep.
I read something. So I'm always reading a book. Now, I might not be necessarily reading it with the intention of taking a million takeaways, but I'm reading it because the act of doing that, if I can take one thing away, is really important. Podcasts, the beauty of this world we're in right now, Dan.
Yeah.
years ago, we didn't have any of this stuff. Now you can listen to this show and get some advice. You could listen to 1,000 different podcasts. They're all free. You go on YouTube in the morning. One of the things I like to do for my boys when they're with me, they always get up after me. And what I do, I'll put something on YouTube that is motivational. So it might be just here's how to goal set. Here's how to think more positively. It might be a culture thing. It's just something that is uplifting enough for them. Now, when they walk down the stairs in the morning into my lounge room, that's on. And from a subconscious level, I'm sure they don't even notice it. They just think it's one of Dad's crazy videos. But somewhere in their brain's taken in that little nugget of information. And if I can just feed their brain a minute or two of that every day when they're with me, somewhere along the line that will have a benefit. So do the same for yourself. Feed yourself. And planning. I've just got my 2026 planner. It's on my desk. I've already been thinking about it for a couple of weeks.
Yep.
Just write some stuff down. What would success look like for me a month from now? What would success look like for me 90 days from now if you're feeling a bit more adventurous? What kind of person do I need to be? One of the best things I ever did, Dan, is I call it themes. And if you imagine, you're coming up to a period of your time, of your life, and you go, what's the important theme for me right now? Rather than goals, because goals can feel a bit static.
Yeah.
But themes are flexible. Themes are fluid. So if I say, well, I want to be more disciplined, that's a theme. Okay, it's not a goal, it's a theme. So then I can look to, who do I know that's disciplined? And what do they demonstrate in their person and their actions that demonstrate discipline to me? And how can I adapt them into my life? Because you might make one or two changes on the back of that theme that are so positive that goals just happen.
Good.
So sometimes you don't have to worry about this static, I will achieve X. Just, who do I want to be?
Yeah.
How do I want to show up? Whether that's with your team, with your family, with your relationship. Who do I want to be? For me, my theme right now is communication.
Okay.
I want to be a better communicator because I know that's got me in trouble in the past. I didn't talk about my feelings. I didn't talk about things. I didn't talk about when things were difficult. So now it's all right. Well, I've got to be a better communicator. And one of the rules that I applied to myself as part of that is if it's not a definite yes, it's a hell no.
Okay.
So I was in a situation where I wasn't feeling good about the situation. I'd just say, look, this doesn't feel right to me. So I'm going to call it a no. And I respect that about myself. That's a good communication tool. So, build themes, win the hour, write stuff down, learn. 10 minutes a day, get up, put a podcast in your ears, keep your mindset nice and fresh and going in the right direction. And get one person in your world that you can have a really honest, deep conversation with no judgment.
Yeah.
That's critical. They're the real core things for me, Dan, that have kept me moving in the right direction in the last 12 months.
Yeah. That's some really good advice, mate. Yeah. And none of those are hard to do on their own, are they?
No.
Yeah. It's just
requires a decision from you to do it.
That's right. Yeah. That's good. Yeah, I love that, mate, because it feeds into hope. We have this concept called the process of hope. And the reason, again, getting back to this whole, mindset thing and keeping your hopes up, the thought is that hopelessness is actually a safe place as well. Because, when you're dreaming and desiring and you're a business owner and you're going for it and you've got goals and you're building team, the problem is that most of life's lived in the middle between what you're hoping for and the actual eventuation of it. And it's in the middle where all the chaos happens.
Yeah, the messy middle. It's called that for a reason. It is.
And so what we have this process in the middle where we need to be able to engage in hope. We need to be able to keep our hopes up somehow. And I feel like you've just nailed some of the contents of what that might look like. And we actually have a program called the Process of Hope because we want people to understand that success is a journey, and you don't actually arrive. It's a continual, it's a continual journey, but we need some wins along the way, and we need to be able to keep our hopes up. And I tell you what, if you're a leader, you need to be able to keep the hopes of your team up.
Absolutely, they're looking for you. It's looking at you.
They are, mate. And the thing is, isn't it, with team, is that they'll take the hit up and they'll make the tackles. But sooner or later, they'll ask, why are we doing this? And so, yeah, and we ask ourselves, don't we, Kerr? I'm sure you got to that point in your business where you just said, tell me again, why am I doing this?
I was.
And
100%.
if we can't answer that question at that vital time, what tends to happen is we change direction or we give up hope. When really sometimes what we needed to have done is just clarified why we're doing what we're doing to start with. And we need to keep our hopes up through some of the mechanisms you've talked about, mate. Learning and feeding ourselves and being vulnerable is a big one, isn't it? Being vulnerable enough to people to be able to say, hey, look, I'm not in a bad spot, but this is what I'm thinking. Or maybe I'm in a bad spot. Just being honest and open.
Yeah, and also recognizing that other people's opinions of you can't change. So even if you think, oh, someone's going to judge me for this, well, guess what? They're still going to judge you.
Yeah.
So just do it anyway.
Yeah.
Don't worry about what people are going to think of you making your choice that's right for you. And again, that was a big thing, when I come back all the way back years ago when I had to get rid of the team or chose to get rid of the team, didn't have to. I knew that was going to blow back on me. I knew it was going to feel nasty, but I did it because it was the right thing for me. And, sometimes when you got to shift your ego out of the way for the better solution.
Yeah.
You very rarely make good decisions from a place of ego. Whereas if you listen to what you really want, you listen to what your team need, you listen to what your business requirements are in the case of a business, you always know the answer. Like instinctively we know. If we're honest with ourselves, we generally know. And that's why I think it's so important to give yourself that clarity of how do I want to show up? What's the theme that I need to live by right now? What's the outcome I'm really searching for here? If the outcome is I want to have a business that is allowing me to go on holiday 4 times a year and you're not building a model that supports that, be real about that.
Yeah.
Because all you're going to do is run down the wrong path and burn out and feel really shitty about it.
Yeah. It's good advice, mate. Hey, I'm gonna finish on 2 questions, mate.
Oh.
So what I want to ask you is this: is that firstly, what would you say to a young Kirby? What would you say to a 20-year-old Kirby who was just starting out, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, like they say? And then the last question, mate, is what would you say to our audience? What would you say to those business owners and leaders out there, facing all the challenges that we all face, but feel like they're doing it all alone, and maybe even feel like they're toxic, where again they're really not. They just need to learn some new tricks.
Yeah.
What would you say to them, mate?
Well, for the leader who's in that place, I'll answer that one first, Dan. You've been through moments before that were difficult, and you're still here. So just remember that this too shall pass is a line that I love. And again, come back to that thing of just win the hour. Like, who do you need to be in this hour to move through? Because again, you stack up enough crumbs, you'll have a meal. So, just focus on the hour. Also communicate. If you feel like an ineffective leader, go and tell people that you feel like an ineffective leader, because you'll be surprised how many people will support you on that endeavor. Or even as a person, you'll be surprised by how many people will go, where are you getting that from? And it could just be that there's false evidence appearing real. Fear.
Yeah, good.
Could be that as a leader, you think you're not performing well, or you think you're letting people down. And in actual fact, they might be looking to you as the source of inspiration. You might be way more inspiring than you realize, because it's your own limiting belief preventing you from seeing the fruition of who you really are.
Yeah.
And sometimes just putting your hand up and say, hey, how am I going here? From an honest perspective, what can I feel like I'm not doing a good job. I feel like as a person, I'm failing. You'd be amazed by how quickly people will pick you up. And sometimes you've got to borrow people's belief until you believe it for yourself.
So true, mate. That's just encouraging.
Put yourself out there. Be courageous and be vulnerable, to come back to your point, Dan. Now, what advice would I give myself? I would say don't spend as much money, because you're not pleasing anyone apart from, like me showing other people how successful I am doesn't need to be financial. Yeah. And the other thing I would say is let success be your noise.
What do you mean by that one?
What I mean by that is it doesn't always have to be a picture on Instagram. People are always going to make their own mind up about you anyway. Let them. And just do what is right for you. Let your success tell the story. Don't worry about what people think.
Yeah.
And I think one final bit of advice I would give myself as well is there's always someone capable of being the top. Why can't it be you? You know, someone has to be the best in every field. Why couldn't it be you? Because the skills are all learnable. The mindset's learnable. Just be flexible, be adaptable, have some neuroplasticity,
Yeah.
and just back yourself, you know, because I think most of us make our decisions as 7-year-old version of us, especially men. You know, we make our decisions as the kid on the playground.
Yeah.
Sometimes you've just got to remind yourself, I'm 42 now, Dan. I still got plenty ahead of me, hopefully. And I think to myself, you know, am I making this decision from 42-year-old grown-up version of Kirby with 2 kids, or is this like 7-year-old bullied Kirby on the playground?
Yeah.
You know, am I being brave, or am I backing into a corner because I'm scared? Because
Good thought.
42-year-old man with 2 kids watching him would not make that decision. And sometimes it's just remembering that you are actually a big boy, and you put your big boy pants on and make some decisions that are good.
Yeah. That's some really good advice there, mate. It's really good advice. Hey, I just want to finish by saying thank you, mate, for working through what you worked through. I know, you know, it's funny with life and leadership and business and all the success, all that external stuff, is that what's carrying it is a human being, you know, somebody who hurts and somebody who's got fears and doubts, all the stuff that you've just talked about. And sometimes it can be really hard. Some people never come back from life's hardest moments, you know, and you did, mate. And I want to say thanks for that. Thanks for being brave enough to bring us on your journey and letting us in on that process, because, you know, we need to hear that. We need to hear the tips and tricks that it takes to be able to just keep shuffling along, because sometimes that's all it is, isn't it, mate? It's just like, let's just keep turning up. Let's just keep on owning the hour. And then if we get some success at the end of the day, it'll be the little moments that we did well. And hey, Kerb, what I also appreciate about you, mate, is you take your learnings, you take what you've been through, and then you go and try to better the life of others. So, mate, we appreciate you. Thank you for your time, and the best is yet to come, bro. Looking forward to seeing how you and your business thrive from here.
Yeah, appreciate being on, Dan, and love what you're doing. And I think for everyone out there, just remember, you know, failure is only feedback. Just keep plugging away.
So good. Thanks, Kerb.
No worries. Thanks, Dan.
All the best, mate.